The plasma strains burned against my wrists as I was dragged through corridors that seemed carved from living crystal. Each step echoed like a death knell. 3 days ago, I'd been charting asteroid fields near the Outer Rim. Now I was prisoner aboard a Valerian war cruiser, and every instinct screamed that I wouldn't leave this ship alive. The guards flanking me stood 7 feet tall, their chitinous armor gleaming like oil on water. They hadn't spoken since dragging me from the holding cells. Their silence was worse than threats. We stopped before doors that towered 30 feet high, etched with symbols that hurt to look at. One guard placed his palm against the surface. The doors split down the middle, opening onto a throne room that stole my breath. The Queen sat elevated on a platform of flowing mercury that defied physics. Her skin shimmered between violet and deep crimson, her eyes compound and golden, reflecting me in 1,000 fractured images. Crown spines rose from her skull like a halo of blades. She studied me the way a biologist studies an insect. Captain Marcus Webb of the Terran Survey Corps. Her voice resonated through my chest cavity. You stand accused of trespassing in sacred space. The penalty is dissolution. Dissolution. I'd heard stories. They'd turn me into component atoms, aware and screaming for centuries before entropy finally claimed me. I filed proper navigation permits, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. The beacon gave clearance. The beacon malfunctioned. Your vessel crossed the Shrine Veil. The punishment is absolute. My throat went dry. Then why am I here and not already scattered across space? For the first time, something like emotion crossed her alien features. Pain, perhaps? Or calculation. Because I am Queen Mother Veshkara, and I have lost much to the demands of tradition. She gestured, and a hologram materialized beside her throne.
A woman appeared.
Valerian, but different from the Queen. Younger, with softer features and spines that curved rather than jutted. Her skin held undertones of copper. Even through the hologram I could see intelligence burning in those golden eyes. My daughter, Princess Kelnara. Widowed 3 cycles ago when her mate died defending our borders from the Krethek swarm? I said nothing. Whatever this was, I'd learned in my years of first contact that silence was often safer than speech. By our law, she cannot rule unless bonded. By her biology, she cannot bond again with her own kind. The grief pheromones remain. Any Valerian male who attempts to court her experiences agonizing neural feedback. The Queen's spines rattle to sound like breaking glass. She is condemned to watch her sister's children inherit what should be hers. Unless what? The words escaped before I could stop them. Unless she bonds with a species immune to pheromonal influence, a species like yours. The Queen leaned forward. Marry my daughter, honor our customs, protect her claim. Do this, and your crime is forgiven. Your freedom restored. Refuse, and face dissolution at dawn. The room spun. You're offering me a political marriage to avoid execution? I am offering you life, human. What you make of it is your concern. She made a gesture, and guards moved toward me. You have until moonset to decide. Choose wisdom. They dragged me to new quarters. Not a cell this time, but a suite carved from amber-colored stone. Through the viewport, I could see 3 moons hanging in perfect triangulation above a planet that swirled with violet storms. I had perhaps 6 hours before those moons set. The door chimed. I turned, expecting guards, and found her instead. Princess Kelnara stood in the doorway, taller than me by a foot, her ceremonial robes shimmering with embedded circuitry that pulsed like a heartbeat. Up close, I could see the grief in her posture, the slight hunch to her shoulders, the way her secondary arms hung limp at her sides. You don't have to do this, she said. Her voice was softer than her mother's, with an overtone that made my bones vibrate. I came to tell you that. I'll find another way to secure my claim. I won't buy it with your coerced consent. I stared at her. You'd give up your throne? I've given up more. She stepped inside and the door sealed behind her. My mate's name was Vector. He was a navigator. He could plot courses through quantum foam that others said were impossible. The day he died, he was covering an evacuation transport. 300 civilian lives saved. The Krethek cut his ship apart. She moved to the viewport, staring out at the moons. I wake up every morning remembering his voice. The way he'd recalibrate the star maps at night because he couldn't sleep. his terrible jokes that no one else found funny. Her reflection in the glass looked hollow. And now my mother wants me to bond with a stranger to preserve political stability. She turned. Perhaps. Or perhaps she sees you as convenient. Either way, I won't force this. Her spines went rigid. What if I said yes? Her spines went rigid. Why would you? Because I've spent 10 years in space learning that the universe is stranger than anyone imagines, and this is just one more impossible thing. I met her compound eyes. And because I don't think you're as resigned to losing your throne as you pretend to be. For a long moment she said nothing. Then slowly something like a smile crossed her features. The ceremony would be binding. Our law doesn't recognize divorce. You'd be consort, prince until death. How long do humans usually live in Valerian court? The last one made it 73 years before dying peacefully in his sleep. He was our chief xenobiologist. She tilted her head. You'd have full protection under royal law. Status. Resources. Freedom to pursue your own interests so long as you fulfilled ceremonial obligations. And the catch? You'd have to actually marry me. Not some holographic proxy or legal fiction. You'd share my quarters, attend state functions, present the appearance of a legitimate bond. Her spines lowered slightly. And you'd have to help me survive the succession trials. The what? Did you think my rivals would accept this peacefully? We have 3 months to prove the bond is genuine before the conclave reviews my claim. If they find it fraudulent, we both face charges. You for conspiracy, me for fraud against the crown. And if they accept it, then you're consort prince in truth, and we navigate this strange arrangement together. She extended one clawed hand. I won't lie to you, Marcus Webb. This won't be easy. My sister will contest every step. The court will scrutinize your every word, and you'll be binding yourself to someone whose heart still belongs to a dead man. I looked at her hand, at the careful hope in her alien features, at the moons hanging in the window slowly descending toward the horizon. I was charting asteroids 3 days ago, I said. This is definitely an upgrade. I took her hand. Her skin was warm, scaled, electric against my palm. The moment we touched, her spines flared with bioluminescent patterns I couldn't read. The ceremony is at moonset, she said. I'll send attendants to prepare you. Fair warning, traditional Valerian weddings involve ritual combat, blood oaths, and public consummation. I must have paled because she made a sound like wind chimes laughing. I'm joking, mostly. The combat is optional. She squeezed my hand once, gently, before releasing it. Thank you, Marcus Webb. Whatever your reasons, you're saving my life. She left before I could respond, and I was alone with the descending moons and the weight of what I'd just agreed to. Somewhere in the ship, machinery hummed. Preparations were already beginning. I'd survived first contact with 16 alien species, navigated 3 civil wars, talked down a Krathic war chief using nothing but stellar poetry and bioluminescent ink. How hard could one political marriage be? The attendants arrived an hour later, and I learned exactly how hard. They stripped me, scanned me, and dressed me in robes that felt alive against my skin. One of them, a younger Valerian with purple-tinged scales, explained in halting Terran standard that the fabric contained bioreactive threads that would bond with my nervous system during the ceremony. It lets the bonded feel each other's emotional state, she said, weaving something glowing into my hair. Not thoughts, just presence. So you always know where the other is, how they feel. That seems invasive. That is marriage. She adjusted my collar with 6-fingered precision. Among my people, anyway. Your customs may differ. They did. Humans generally didn't broadcast their emotions through clothing. But I was past the point of protest. The final moon touched the horizon as they led me through corridors packed with Valerian nobles. Their spines whispered as I passed, a susurrus of judgment and curiosity. I kept my head up, my expression neutral, and pretended my hands weren't shaking. The throne room had transformed. Bioluminescent vines covered every surface, pulsing with inner light. The queen sat on her Mercury throne, but now she was surrounded by a council of elders whose crowned spines formed a canopy of living blades above her head. Princess Kelnara stood at the center of it all, her robes shifting through colors I had no names for. When she saw me, her spines lifted and what I'd learned was surprise. You look almost royal, she said. Almost? Give it time. She took my hand again, and this time I felt the nervous tremor in her fingers. She was as terrified as I was. The queen rose. The room fell silent. We gather to witness the bonding of Princess Kelnara, heir to the Spiral Throne, and Captain Marcus Webb of Terra. Let any who would contest this union speak now or be bound to silence. A figure stepped from the crowd. Taller than Kelnara, her spines edged with silver, her robes bearing the insignia of military command, her eyes fixed on me with open contempt. I contest, she said, on grounds that this human cannot possibly understand our ways, that this union is a mockery made in desperation, that my sister dishonors our brother-in-law's memory with this farce. Kelnara's hand tightened on mine. Keshra, save it. The sister, Keshra, moved closer. You want the throne? Prove this bond is real. Prove this creature is worthy. Keshra, the law is clear. The law allows challenge. I invoke the trial of knowing. Keshra's smile showed too many teeth. 3 questions. If the human answers even one correctly, I withdraw my contest. If he fails all 3, this ceremony ends and the succession defaults to my bloodline. Kelnara turned to me, her compound eyes reflecting panic in 1,000 fragments. You don't have to accept. This isn't part of the standard ceremony. She's manipulating protocol. What are the questions? I asked. Keshra's smile widened. She gestured, and a small figure was brought forward. A child, Verilian, barely waist-height, with spines still soft and undeveloped. They clutched a data tablet to their chest. My daughter, Zelmika, Keshra said. She will ask the questions. Answer with the wisdom befitting a consort prince, or abandon this charade. Then those golden eyes fixed on me. First question, they said, voice high and uncertain. What is the source of my aunt's grief? Around the room I heard shocked whispers. Kelnara went rigid beside me. It was a trap, say her dead mate, and I reduced her to nothing but her widowhood. Say something else, and I proved I didn't understand her at all. I knelt so I was eye level with the child. Your aunt grieves many things, I said carefully. The loss of her mate, yes. But also the future they planned together, the dreams they shared, the person she was when he was alive. I glanced at Kelnara, saw her spines trembling, and perhaps, most of all, she grieves the fear that she'll never feel whole again, that the best parts of her died with him. They looked at their mother, who stood frozen, calculating. Second question, Zelmika said. Why would you accept this bond? Another trap. Say freedom from execution, and I proved it was transactional. Say love, and I'd be lying. Say duty, and I'd insult Kelnara. Because your aunt showed me kindness when she didn't have to, I said. Because she offered me a choice when she could have let her mother's decree stand. Because in the short time I've known her, she's proven herself worthy of respect. I straightened. I don't expect love. I don't expect perfect understanding, but I can offer loyalty and partnership and the honest effort to build something real from this strange beginning. Zelmika's spines quivered. They were young enough that their emotional broadcasts were uncontrolled. I could see uncertainty rippling through them. Final question, they whispered. What would you do if my aunt's heart never heals, if she never stops loving her first mate? I looked at Kelnara, really looked at her, saw the grief carved into the way she held herself, the love for a dead man still burning in her eyes, the terror that accepting help meant betraying his memory. Then I'd consider it an honor, I said, to be married to someone capable of loving that deeply. I'd never ask her to forget him. I'd never demand what she can't give. I'd just try to be someone worthy of standing beside her while she carries that grief. I held her gaze. Love isn't a finite resource. The heart doesn't run out. And if she never loves me the way she loved him, that's acceptable. I'd rather have her honest partnership than a counterfeit romance. Silence. Then Zelmika turned to their mother. I think he understands, Mother. For a long moment she stared at me. Then, slowly, deliberately, she bowed her head. The challenge is withdrawn, she said. Proceed with the ceremony. She melted back into the crowd, leaving her daughter standing alone. Zelmika looked lost until Kelnara extended a hand, drawing the child close. Thank you, she whispered to them, for asking the hard questions. The queen rose. The bond is tested and accepted. Let the union be sealed. What followed blurred together, ritual words in a language I didn't know, the press of the crowd, the burning moment when bioreactive threads in my robes connected with Kelnara's, and I felt her presence bloom in my chest like a second heartbeat. Not her thoughts, but her emotional state. Relief. fear, fragile hope, and underneath it all, grief like an ocean. When the ceremony ended, I was consort prince. Married to an alien princess I'd met hours ago, bound to a woman whose heart belonged to a ghost. The celebration lasted until dawn, but Kelnara and I slipped away as soon as protocol allowed. She led me through private corridors to quarters that would now be ours. The rooms were vast, decorated with star charts and navigation equipment. Vektor's belongings, I realized. She hadn't changed anything. I know this is strange, she said, moving to a viewport that showed the planet below. I don't expect you to. It's okay, I said. We'll figure this out. You keep saying that, as if this is something that can be figured out. Everything can be figured out. It's just a question of time and effort. You're very human. I try. She turned to face me, and in the dim light her bioluminescent patterns pulsed slowly. The attendants will expect us to share quarters, to maintain the appearance of a real bond. I've prepared a separate room for you if you'd prefer privacy, but the entrance needs to remain concealed. Show me tomorrow. Tonight, I'm too exhausted to retain spatial information. Then take the meditation alcove. It's private enough. She gestured to a curved space separated by a curtain of living vines. I'll stay here. I moved toward it, then paused. Kelnara? What you said earlier about your sister finding another way to contest, what did you mean? Her spines lowered. Keshra withdrew her immediate challenge, but the conclave review still stands. She'll spend the next 3 months looking for proof that our bond is fraudulent. Every interaction, every public appearance, every moment we spend together will be scrutinized. She met my eyes. We have to convince the most paranoid minds in the Empire that we're genuinely bonded. That means learning each other, understanding each other, presenting a united front even when we disagree. So we need to become actually married. In everything but emotion, yes. She turned away. Sleep well, Consort Prince. Tomorrow, your real education begins. I collapsed onto the meditation cushions, my mind spinning with the day's impossibilities. Through the vine curtain, I could feel Kelnara's presence through the bond clothes, her grief, her exhaustion, her determination. I'd married an alien princess to avoid execution. Now I had 3 months to make it convincing enough to survive. I fell asleep wondering what Vektor had been like and whether I'd ever be anything more than a pale substitute for a ghost. Morning came too soon. I woke to find Kelnara already awake, studying holographic star charts with an intensity that made her spines rigid. Problem? I asked. She gestured, and the display zoomed in on a sector of space. My sister has requested a formal audience with the Conclave. She's bringing evidence of our bond's illegitimacy. Already? She works fast. Kelnara's secondary arms flexed in agitation. We need to prepare. I've scheduled sessions with a protocol instructor, a cultural liaison, and a bonding counselor. If we're going to convince anyone this is real, you need to understand our customs. The next weeks blurred into intensive education. I learned the 57 formal greetings, the dietary restrictions that separated castes, the significance of spine angles in political discourse. I studied Valerian history, memorized royal bloodlines, and practiced the graceful hand gestures that conveyed complex emotions. Kelnara was patient but demanding. She corrected my posture, my pronunciation, my assumptions about her culture. We spent hours in simulation rooms practicing public appearances, learning to move as a bonded unit. Slowly, something shifted between us. It started small. She'd mentioned something Vektor used to do, and instead of changing the subject, I'd ask about it. What kind of navigator was he? What routes did he favor? What made him laugh? At first she seemed surprised. Then, cautiously, she began to talk. I learned that Vektor had been obsessed with ancient Earth music, that he'd collected recordings of Beethoven and played them while calculating jump coordinates, that he'd proposed to Kelnara during a meteor shower, using the trajectories to spell out marriage glyphs in a language only navigators understood. In return, I told her about Earth, about oceans and forests and the peculiar human obsession with caffeinated beverages, about my years in the Survey Corps, the wonders and horrors I'd witnessed. We were building something, not romance, neither of us pretended otherwise, but partnership.
Understanding. Trust.
The bioreactive bond between us grew stronger. I could feel her moods now without trying. The spike of anxiety before political meetings, the deep satisfaction when she solved navigation problems, the persistent undercurrent of grief that never fully faded. And she could feel me, my curiosity, my determination, my slowly growing affection for the strange, brilliant woman I'd married. 2 months in, Keishra made her move. We were summoned to a formal hearing before the conclave. The chamber was vast, amphitheater style, with the council of elders arranged in ascending tiers. Keishra stood at the center, confidence radiating from every spine. "Honored conclave," she began, "I present evidence that my sister's bond is a legal fiction designed to circumvent succession law." She activated a hologram, security footage from our first weeks together. Edited footage, carefully spliced to show Kelnara and me maintaining physical distance, separate sleeping quarters, stiff, formal interactions. Every moment that suggested political arrangement rather than genuine bond. "They maintain the appearance of marriage," Keishra said, "but there's no genuine connection. No shared interests. No intimacy. This human is a convenient prop, nothing more." Murmurs rippled through the council. The head elder, an ancient Valerian whose spines had gone silver with age, leaned forward. "Princess Kelnara, how do you answer these charges?" Kelnara stood, her posture rigid with controlled fury. "My sister shows you edited footage that removes all context. She ignores the hours we spend in private study, the shared meals, the navigation sessions where Marcus helps me calculate routes using human mathematical approaches. None of which proves genuine bonding," Keishra countered. "Show me evidence of emotional connection. Show me the intimacy required for legitimate marriage under our law. Consort prince. You've been silent." "What evidence do you offer?" I stood, felt every eye in the chamber focus on me. "I can't prove love," I said carefully. "I won't claim emotions I don't feel, but I can prove understanding." A star chart appeared, overlaid with navigation routes in 3 different colors. The blue routes are Vector's standard approaches to the outer rim. I pulled them from the navigation archives. The green routes are what any competent pilot would chart. The red routes are what Princess Kelnara actually uses. I expanded the display. "Notice the difference? She doesn't follow her late mate's paths even though they're objectively efficient. She charts new routes, takes unnecessary risks, deliberately avoids the trajectories they use to calculate together. She does this because following his routes hurts too much, because every familiar path reminds her of what she lost, because she's trying to become someone new while honoring who she was." I looked at Kelnara, saw her spines trembling. "I know this because I pay attention, because I study her work. Because understanding her matters to me." I pulled up more data. I know she works late into third watch because insomnia hits during planet rise. I know she avoids the western observation deck because that's where Vector proposed. I know she keeps his navigation stylus on her desk even though modern charts don't require manual input, because seeing it reminds her that love existed and was real and mattered.
The chamber was absolutely still. "You want proof of intimacy?" I continued.
"True intimacy isn't physical. It's knowing someone deeply enough to see their pain and honor it. It's learning someone's patterns and preferences and fears. It's choosing every day to be present for someone, even when that presence is complicated and messy and doesn't look like romance." I moved to stand beside Kelnara. Through the bond close, I felt her emotional state. Shock, gratitude, something warmer I couldn't name. "I don't love her the way Vector did," I said. "I probably never will. But I respect her. I support her. I stand beside her. And if that's not enough for your definition of marriage, then your definitions need updating." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then the ancient elder made a sound like grinding stones. Valarian laughter. "The young human lectures us on the nature of bonding," they said. "Perhaps we needed the lecture." They turned to Keishra. "Your evidence shows what you wish to see, but true bonding is measured not in performances but in knowledge, in the daily decision to remain present for another being." Their spines lowered in judgment. "The contest is dismissed. Princess Kelnara's claim stands." Keishra's expression went rigid. She bowed stiffly and retreated. The conclave dissolved, but Kelnara and I remained standing in the center of the chamber. Through the bond, I felt her emotions churning, relief, wonder, something dangerously close to joy. "You studied my navigation patterns," she said quietly. "I study everything about you."
"That's the job." The job was to look married.
You went further. I got curious. I met her eyes. "And you're interesting. Your mind works in ways I don't fully understand, and I like puzzles." She made that wind chime sound again. "I'm a puzzle to you? The best kind. The kind that keeps revealing new complexity. We stood there in the empty chamber, feeling each other's presence through the bond. "Thank you," she said finally, "for defending me, for seeing me, for not just playing a role." "We're partners," I said. "Partners show up for each other." Something shifted in her expression. "A decision being made. Come with me," she said. "There's something I want to show you." She led me through the ship to a section I'd never visited, private quarters that had been sealed since before I arrived. Vektor's rooms. "I haven't opened this door since he died," she said, palm against the entry panel. I couldn't face it. Couldn't go through his things. Couldn't say goodbye. She looked at me. "But I think I can now, if you're with me." I took her hand. The gesture had become natural between us. "I'm with you." The door opened onto a space frozen in time. Star charts covered the walls. Physical books, rare and precious, lined shelves. A navigation console sat dormant, its last calculations still displayed. Kelnara moved through the room, touching things carefully. A jacket, a data stylus, a hollow photo of her and Vektor together, laughing at something outside the frame. "He would have liked you," she said. "You have the same terrible sense of humor. The same way of looking at problems from unexpected angles." She picked up the stylus. "He used to say that navigation wasn't about finding the fastest route. It was about finding the route that told the best story. Sounds like a romantic." He was. Impossibly romantic. He'd recite planetary equations like poetry. He'd calculate jump coordinates to form my name in spatial geometry. Her voice caught. "I thought I'd never want to hear about navigation again. But when you showed those routes in the conclave, explained my patterns, I felt something I haven't felt in years. That someone saw my work and understood it. That you didn't just defend me, you defended my choices as a navigator, as someone separate from my grief." She turned to face me. "You gave me back a piece of myself I thought I'd lost. Through the bond, I felt the shift in her emotional state. The grief was still there, would probably always be there, but it was joined now by something else. Gratitude, warmth, the fragile beginning of healing." "What do you want to do with this room?" I asked. She looked around, considering. "I think I want to keep some things. Archive his navigation work. It was brilliant, and the Corps should have access. Give his clothes to his family. Keep the books." She held up the stylus. "And, this. I'll keep this. And the rest? I think I'm ready to let it go." She met my eyes. "I think I'm ready to stop living in the past." We spent the next hours sorting through Vektor's belongings. Kelnara told stories about each item, memories that made her laugh and cry, and sometimes both. I listened, offered comfort when she needed it, gave space when she needed that instead. By the time we finished, the room was mostly empty. Just the books and a few personal items remained. "Thank you," she said again, "for being here, for making this possible." "Partners," I said simply. She smiled. A real smile, the first I'd seen reach her eyes. "Yes," she said. "Partners." The final conclave review came 3 months to the day after our marriage. We stood before the assembled elders, before the court, before Keshra and her daughter and the queen herself.
The head elder spoke. "We have observed.
We have questioned, we have tested, and we have concluded that the bond between Princess Kelnara and consort Prince Marcus Webb, while unconventional, meets all requirements under law. However," the elder continued, and my heart sank, "there remains one final requirement. A bonded pair must demonstrate the capacity for unified decision-making. We present you with a test." A star system appeared, showing 2 potential routes. Both led to a critical diplomatic meeting. One route was faster but carried significant risk from hostile territory. The other was safer but would arrive past the optimal negotiation window. "Choose your path," the elder said. "Together." Now. Kelnara and I looked at each other. Through the bond, I felt her analyzing both routes, calculating probabilities I couldn't follow. "What do you think?" she asked. "You're the navigator. I trust your judgment. But it's a political meeting. You have diplomatic experience I lack." I studied the routes again. The safer path arrives late, which puts us at a negotiating disadvantage. The risky path could get us killed, which is an even worse disadvantage. I met her eyes. "Unless you can make the risky path less risky." Her spines lifted. "What are you thinking?" "Your navigation style. The routes you showed me. You don't take unnecessary risks, but you do take calculated ones. You find approaches others miss. I gestured at the hostile territory. Is there a route through there that works? She zoomed in on the dangerous sector, her mind clearly racing. Then she smiled. There is. It uses gravity wells in a way that'll make the trip uncomfortable but bypass the hostile patrols entirely. We'd arrive on time with minimal risk. Then that's our answer. I turned to the Conclave. We take the third option. The one Princess Kelnara will calculate that meets both safety and timing requirements. The Elder's spines rattled with what might have been approval. Explain. She pulled up calculations, showed trajectory maps, explained the navigation theory in terms that made even the Elders nod. This is why you bonded with a human, one Elder said. He defers to your expertise. No, Kelnara said firmly. He trusts my expertise. There's a difference. Deference is about hierarchy. Trust is about partnership. She looked at me. He doesn't diminish himself to elevate me. He recognizes what I'm good at and empowers me to use those skills. That's what bonded pairs should do. Silence. Then the ancient elder rose. The bond is validated. Princess Kelnara, your claim to succession is confirmed. Consort Prince Marcus Webb, you are recognized in full legal standing. They made a gesture of finality. This conclave is concluded. The chamber erupted in formal acknowledgement. Spine rattling in harmonic tones I was learning to interpret. We'd won. Kelnara grabbed my hand, and through the bond I felt her pure, uncomplicated joy. We did it, she whispered. You did it, I just showed up.
You showed up perfectly.
She pulled me toward the exit. Come on, I want to celebrate properly. What does that entail? I'm showing you how to plot a course through impossible space. And then I'm teaching you the drinking game Vector invented using stellar coordinates. That sounds terrible. We left the conclave chamber hand in hand, partners in truth, and headed toward whatever strange future we'd build together. 6 months later, I stood on the observation deck watching planet rise, a cup of something approximating coffee in my hands. Kelnara found me there, as she often did during this hour. Couldn't sleep? She asked. Old habits, you? Same. She joined me at the viewport, her shoulder brushing mine. I've been thinking. Dangerous. She made the wind chime laugh. I've been thinking about what you said during the conclave. About intimacy being knowledge and presence. She paused. I know you better now than I knew Vector after our first year together. I know your patterns, your preferences, your fears. I know you reorganize the star charts when you're anxious. I know you miss Earth's oceans. I know you still have nightmares about dissolution. I thought the bond only transmitted emotional states, not specific knowledge. The bond transmits emotional states. Everything else I learned by paying attention. She turned to face me, by being present, by choosing every day to understand you better. Something in her tone made my heart race. Kelnara, I'm not saying I love you, she said quickly. I don't know if I'm capable of that kind of love anymore. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Maybe it'll take years to find out. Then what are you saying? I'm saying that somewhere between agreeing to marry you and now, you stopped being a convenient arrangement and became someone I can't imagine navigating without. Her spines lifted, and what I'd learned was vulnerability. I'm saying that when I think about the future, you're in it, not as obligation or appearance, but as choice. Through the bond, I felt the truth of her words. The complex mixture of grief and hope and affection and possibility. I'm saying, she continued, that if you're willing, I'd like to try making this real. Not for the conclave or my mother or political stability. For us. I set down my coffee, took her hands in mine. I've been real for a while now, I said. I was just waiting for you to catch up. It was strange and awkward and perfect. 2 different species figuring out how affection worked between them. When we pulled apart, she was glowing with bioluminescent patterns I'd never seen before. What do those mean? I asked. Happiness, she said. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. It's been so long I forgot what the pattern looked like. We stood together, watching the planet rotate below us. 2 impossible beings who'd found something real in the strangest circumstances. Marcus? She said after a while. Yes? Thank you for being patient with my grief. For not demanding I be someone I couldn't be. For showing up every day, even when I was difficult. Partners show up for each other, I said. You taught me that. Did I? By choosing to trust me. By letting me see your pain. By being honest about what you could and couldn't give. I squeezed her hands. You taught me that love isn't about grand gestures. It's about small moments of presence. It's about choosing someone, over and over, in all the mundane ways that actually matter. When did you get so wise? I married an alien princess. It forces perspective. She laughed, and this time there was no grief in it, just joy. Somewhere in the ship, bells chimed the hour. A new day beginning. A new chapter in this strange story we were writing together. Come on, Kelnara said, pulling me toward the door. I want to show you the new route I've been calculating. It goes through a nebula that shouldn't be navigable, but I think I found a way. And I need my partner to help me verify the math. I'm not a navigator. No, but you ask the right questions.
You see patterns I miss. You make me better at what I do.
She grinned. Besides, you promised to learn. I'm holding you to that. We walked through the corridors of the ship that had become home, past crew members who nodded to their princess and her human consort, toward the navigation deck where we'd spend hours working side by side. I'd come aboard this ship as a prisoner facing execution. I'd married an alien princess to save my life, and somehow impossibly I'd found something worth living for. Not romance, exactly. Not the passionate love of poets and songs, but partnership. Understanding. The daily choice to show up for someone who'd chosen to show up for me. It was better than I'd imagined. Better than I deserved. It was real. And as Kelnara pulled up her impossible navigation charts, as I leaned in to study routes through space that shouldn't exist, as we began the work of building something new together, I realized that freedom wasn't what I'd been granted when the Queen offered this arrangement. Freedom was what I'd found in choosing every day to stay, to be present. To be partners with this brilliant, grieving, impossible woman who'd taught me that love comes in more forms than anyone imagines. The navigation charts glowed between us. Outside the viewports, stars wheeled in ancient patterns, and somewhere between the mathematics and the starlight, we charted a course toward a future neither of us had planned, but both of us were ready to explore. Together.